Welcome to Lax Trax. All lacrosse, all the time. Your source for California lacrosse. Just for those of you who I haven't heard, you haven't heard the story before, I'm actually a G.I. Joe figure, and I'm actually the voice of Optimus Prime and Megatron on the Transformers. So just a little fun fact about me again. I don't know if it gives me anything.
It always does. Everybody loves that story, Tom.
Well, I don't know, Jimmy. We'll see. All right, but enough of that. So without further ado, why don't we get into our show tonight? We've got a great one. We're so fortunate to have a lacrosse legend. I mean, this guy really is a who's who of lacrosse, and we're super excited to have him on the show tonight. And he's a good friend of ours and a good friend of the show. And we'd like to welcome to Lax Trax the one and only Sacred Heart Gators head coach Chris Rotelli. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. It's great to be on. Appreciate you having me.
Well,
now, is that true about the Optimus Prime voice?
It is, my friend.
Wow.
It is indeed. But that's on the toy only, not in the movie, but on the toy only. But,
all right.
Yes, sir. And
pretty cool.
Occasionally I do a little imitation and voiceover, but I don't know about tonight. But maybe sometime when I see you down the road, I'll go through the whole script I used on that. It's kind of funny.
He had everybody in the announcer's booth. He was reciting all his Optimus Prime voices. It was awesome.
Yeah, the game the other night against St. Margaret's, all the coaches wanted to hear the voice. So, anyways, 15 seconds maybe of fame. I don't know, but if anything. But anyways, Chris, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for taking time. I know it's a busy time of year now that we're getting into the season and getting going here, and what we'd like to do is just kind of get to know you, obviously, talk a little bit about the team this year and everything, and then, just get a little bit about your sense of what's going on here in the California lacrosse scene. So I'm going to go over maybe a quick bio of yours. You are from Providence, or actually Rumford, right?
That is correct. Which is about 5 minutes outside of Providence.
I used to live in Barrington, so I know the area very well. And then, in fact, I spent a lot of time living in Barrington. I worked up in Pawtucket for Hasbro Toy Company.
No kidding.
That's where we got
as you know, Pawtucket is right next to Rumford.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. That's where I got the voiceover for Optimus Prime. So I had the good fortune of living up there. It's a great spot and a beautiful spot, but can't beat San Diego either. So.
Well, I've lived in both of them, and they are both great spots. Rumford or Providence is a great place to grow up. I went to high school at a school called Moses Brown, which is right across the street from Brown University. Both my parents grew up in Providence, right near Brown University. So I sort of spent my childhood on, athletic fields, sneaking onto the Brown fields, playing lacrosse with my friends, and it was a great place to grow up.
How old were you when you first started playing lacrosse?
Third grade. So, and it really was when I went to a school called Wheeler School in Providence.
I know where that is. Yeah. Sure.
And so I went to Wheeler in third grade, and that was really my first exposure to lacrosse. My parents had played, and my dad played hockey and lacrosse at Brown, but he never really pushed lacrosse on me early. I think, I was playing other sports growing up. I was playing baseball, soccer, spending a lot of time. He played a little hockey, swimming, just sort of being really active. And then when I went to Wheeler, they actually had lacrosse teams there. And so my dad, I remember when he gave me my first stick and doing a program called Mini Lacrosse, which was run by a guy named Rob Hollis at Moses Brown. And sort of got into it slowly. And then really the first lacrosse team I ever played on was sixth grade. And that was the middle school lacrosse team at Wheeler School.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. No, I know exactly where that school is. That's pretty cool. So I read that you were a 3-time All-American in high school, right?
I was, yes.
All right. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I agree. That was pretty cool. I tell you, I remember when my sophomore year, I remember my high school coach, Dennis Dobbin, calling me the morning before school And I get a call at 7:30 in the morning. My mom's like, it's Coach Dobbin. And I grab the phone. He's like, Chris, we congratulations, you made high school All-American. And he goes, honestly, we weren't really even going to the meeting like thinking we were going to nominate you being a sophomore, but all these other schools that we've played kept nominating players that like you were much better than. And we're like, well, geez, if they're all getting nominated, we should really nominate Rotelli. And then they nominated me, and it was myself and a guy named Mike Gild, who was a senior defenseman, who were all American that year. And then I got it the next year, and I got it my senior year as well. But
Nice.
it was a lot of fun playing lacrosse, high school lacrosse in Rhode Island. It was really, this was, the late 90s. So it was 95 to 99 when I was in high school. And in Rhode Island, lacrosse was still only played at 5 schools in the entire state. There really was not, youth lacrosse was just sort of starting. There were no travel teams. If you played lacrosse, you really only played it if you went to a school that had it. And
Right.
again, I was fortunate to go to one of those schools, and I fell in love with it. And so for us playing games, we would play the other teams in Rhode Island, but we were sort of the best one at Moses Brown. So we ended up playing a lot of the boarding schools in the ISL, the Interscholastic League, and we do a little traveling. And but yeah, it was a lot of fun. High school lacrosse.
Hey, Chris,
I
what position did your dad play at Brown?
my dad was a midfielder. His primary sport was hockey. So he played hockey all through college, and he only did 1 year of lacrosse at Brown. He did hockey and lacrosse, and then just hockey after freshman year.
Good genes.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
genes. Nice. So then you went on to play at UVA, right? Class of 2003 that I read.
Yeah.
Let me just read this off real quick. Man, this is just a who's who of lacrosse. But captain of the team, all ACC 3 times, all American 3 times, 2 ACC championships. And 2003 was your big year, right? That's the one UVA won it all. You were the Twarton Award winner, ACC Player of the Year, and Male Athlete of the Year. Tell us about all of that.
That was
Gee, man,
well,
that's a mouthful for me.
that was a great way to end a college lacrosse career, that's for sure. And but to sort of put you in our mind of where we were that year, we had been to 2 other Final Fours. So my freshman year, we went to the Final Four. We lost in the last second to Princeton in a game where they upset us, and we really were. It was sort of that freshman year was us or Syracuse. We had lost to Syracuse in overtime. We had beaten Princeton by 10 goals earlier in the year, and we kind of got upset in the semifinals. Sophomore year, we end up losing in overtime in the first round to Doug Shanahan's Hofstra team. Doug won the first ever Tewaaraton Award that year. He was unbelievable, Doug Shanahan. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh!
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I played on the same pro team as him. He was just what an athlete. So then junior year, we went to the Final Four again, and we lost in double overtime to Syracuse in a game that in the semifinals, in a game that we kind of had won, and we gave away just at the end. And so senior year, we look around, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this is our last chance. My classmates and I think the thought was we would have won one by now. So we had some urgency, and we were very motivated, and we sort of took on this attitude of we're just going to do whatever it takes to win this year. And we became the hardest working team. We could be, I think, the hardest working team in the country. We were tough, we were confident, and we were just going to do everything we could to win that last game. And part of that, a big part of that is the pain of losing that game the year before was such a driving force. And so that season, we lost 2 games in the regular season in 2003, back-to-back weeks. We lost to Maryland at home by a goal, and lost to Johns Hopkins at Johns Hopkins. And it just so turned out that in the Final Four, in the semifinals, we played Maryland and we beat them. And in the finals, we played Johns Hopkins and we beat them. So we got to
Nice.
beat every
Amazing.
team we played that year,
Oh my
and the
gosh.
only
Dream
teams that beat
season, huh?
us. And I got all those awards and I had a great year. But it was a lot of it, I did feel like it was a lot of like as one of the captains and I received a lot of accolades, I think, for our team success. And I'm really proud of the national championship and everything we did together. And and it was a cool year for me too, because Dom Starsia, I think, really helped me sort of turn the corner as a player and really understand the game differently. I was always able to run fast and shoot the ball hard. And that senior year, I think Dom really taught me that, to be the best team, I had to find a way to make everybody around me better too. And he taught me how to pass, and him and Mark Van Arsdale and Dave Curry, who were the offensive coaches, my game really became, which was like more of a goal scorer. I ended up with, I think, more assists than goals that
Yeah,
senior
yeah.
year. And, played a lot of defense, which was never something I did a lot of, picked up a lot of ground balls and really became a really well-rounded player, which I think was part of the reason I had such a good year.
Yeah, we've talked to a lot of coaches, and a lot of them would say that the guy that goes 25 goals, 25 assists is probably one of the most important guys in the team. Just the guy who leads assists is one of the most important guys on the team. So,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just because there are scorers, but those guys that are passing the ball to get those goals are super important as well.
Yeah.
Let
Well,
me
the
back
more
up
I'm
a
around
second, Chris.
lacrosse, and
You're a deep
yeah,
hole.
go ahead.
You're a deep hole. You were a deep hole in college.
No, I was an offensive midfielder. I
Oh,
played a
offensive
little
midfielder.
attack as
I
well.
lost you there.
So
Just wanted to
yeah,
know.
my I started off as an attackman and then in high school was sort of converted to a midfielder. My junior year, no, excuse me, it was my sophomore year. Our high school team was having a hard time clearing, and I was never getting the ball at attack. I was just kind of standing there, and my coach in high school, Dennis Dobbin, came to me one game. He's like, Chris, like you're either gonna have to play midfield or you're probably never gonna touch the ball. So then I just started. I would do my midfield shift and rest at attack, and the rest of my high school career was doing exactly that, doing like a shift of midfield, a shift of attack, and going back and forth. I think that was a good thing for me too. But in college, it was primarily midfield. I did play attack a little bit my sophomore year. I played some attack, but primarily midfield.
And is the Van Artsdale you referenced, is that the same coach at Loyola right now, or oh,
Yeah, yes, it is.
oh,
Yeah,
okay,
it is. Yeah,
the
so
offensive coordinator at Loyola, right?
that's right.
Okay. You
Yeah,
still
and
keep
he
in
was the
touch with?
offensive coordinator for 2 years at UVA. My last two, junior, and then prior to that was a great guy named Chris Colbeck, who is Chris Colbeck really taught me a lot of the fundamentals that I know about lacrosse came from Colbeck. And he ironically played college lacrosse at Loyola, but was a great, great college lacrosse coach. And then just decided, um, after my sophomore year, I think he just decided, that he needed to go a different direction with his life. And he went into, kind of went back to school and worked, I think became a teacher. But boy, he was such a smart lacrosse coach and intense. And so I learned a lot from him.
Nice, nice,
Amazing.
nice. So then let's move on a little bit. So then played in the MLL, of course. How long did you play there? And
We
you were
didn't
an
talk
all star
about the
as well,
Torton
right?
at all. We didn't talk about the
Oh, we
Torton.
will. We will. I'm going. This guy, producers, man, what do you do with them?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh,
so
we,
tell me a little bit about the MLL.
the MLL was when I played. So I came in the league in 2003, played my first MLL game 6 days after winning the national championship in college. 3 days later, was drafted number one overall in the draft. Played 3 days later in my first ever MLL game. And that summer was sort of a whirlwind. But the MLL in general, extremely fun at that time. It really had just started. There were only 6 teams, and so the best players in the world playing on 6 lacrosse teams. And the games were so competitive, and the level of play was so high. Different than college, where it's less. You're not practicing as much as you
Right.
are in a college team, but every bit, if not more, competitive and tough. And they let you play in that league. Um, I got a funny story of my rookie year. I think you probably know the famous ref, great guy Matt Palem. Matt Palem. He does all the PLL games, and he
Mm-hmm.
also
Oh yeah, yeah.
refs all the
Yep.
college games. Palem was a goalie at Syracuse. So my first year in the league, somebody literally like the ball's going from offense to defense. Somebody just takes my stick out of my hands and throws it into the corner of the field. And
Oh
he
my
saw the
God.
whole thing, and that's illegal. And I turned to Matt and I was like, what is that? And he turns back to me, he goes, "Shut up, rookie." And he just kept running. And
Nice.
so
Nice
that was
baptism.
kind of like what the MLL was like. I remember another game early that rookie year where the Powells were both, Ryan and Casey Powell were both playing on the Rochester Rattlers. And I was on the Bridgeport Barrage, and I
Killer
think it
name.
was Rob Dorr, defenseman, you know, tough guy, like hit Ryan Powell like out of bounds into the boards, and out of nowhere, like Casey just comes flying from the corner of the field and like tackles him like, WWF style, and it just turns into like an all out like melee, like punches thrown, like brawl. I'm like, what is happening? Like
Jeez.
that's what we're doing here.
Professional
I,
lacrosse.
I remember another time, like our Sal Licasio was our coach that
Wow.
year, and Sal didn't like a call one time. He picked up the pylon and threw it at the officials on the field. So it was really like the Wild West. It was just craziness. And then, after the game, you'd shake hands and you'd go out and you'd all, you go to the bar and have a great time
Oh
together,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody go home the next day. And
All
you
buddies.
you basically did that for like 16 weeks in a row. And so I
Wow.
did that for 8 years. What got me to finally stop was it was not like I loved playing, but it was the travel. I was living in California, so and it worked great when the league expanded west, and that was one thing that got me up to San Francisco in 2006 with the San Francisco Dragons. But in 2009 the league contracted back, and so my last 2 years in the league, my life was like this. For 16 weeks I would fly to the East Coast on a Friday, play an MLL pro game on Saturday, and fly home Sunday morning. And
Oh
I
my
did that for
gosh.
16 weeks in a row, in the summertime for 2 years, and it just became hard. It was too much travel and putting sort of life on hold back here
Yeah.
that much time. So I stopped doing it when I was 30. But it was a good
Wow.
run. It was a lot of fun.
Great run. No, it sounds like an awesome time. And you got
Yeah.
to be in the league when it was in its infancy, so it's kind of fun to be a part of be a pioneer, I guess,
Was that
of the
was
league.
that during the Bud Light tour or the Bud tour or after it?
Yeah, it was right afterwards. The first year was 2001, and that was when they did that big promotion, Take It Outside, and they had two teams playing in 2001, sort of exhibition style. And then the next year it went to six teams, and stayed that way until 2006 when it
Yeah.
expanded to 10, and then it contracted back down because really in 2006, 2007, 2008, lacrosse in California was not what it is today. We're talking, geez, 15 years ago, almost
Hmm.
20 years
Hmm.
ago. And so they had a hard time getting people to games. And I don't think they ever really got the venues right.
Right.
They
Yeah.
never found the perfect spot, and it is just tough to get more than 5,000 people to go to a lacrosse game. And so set the model of selling tickets to support it just didn't really make sense at that time.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's a great story. Great story.
Yeah. So before I get into coaching, then Twartenden Award. Tell us about that and that experience when you won that.
Yeah, I mean that was it was it was the player that the Heisman Trophy of lacrosse is a major honor. I was again, that was right in that week where won the national championship, you know, got the Toraton Award, drafted number one overall, played the first pro game. And I think that was right when the ACC Male Athlete of the Year happened. And it was just sort of like, it was extremely humbling, and it was very exciting, but I'm not sure I even I'm not sure how I handled it all at the time, other than just being really honored. And I think it was a humbling experience for me because it just felt like I was so proud and so happy that we had had so much success that I would be getting these awards. And that was the Tewaaraton Award was still pretty young. That was the third one. So Doug Shanahan won the first one in 2001. Mike Powell won the second one. I won the third, and then Mike Powell won the
Yeah,
fourth.
I
Wow.
read that.
Mike,
Yeah.
Mike Powell's probably, maybe the best college lacrosse player of all time. So I'm proudly sandwiched in between his two Tewaaraton awards. So that's pretty cool
Yeah, well,
too.
congrats
Yeah.
on that. I actually read also that the male athlete of the year from the ACC after you was Philip Rivers, football
Right.
player
And,
from
and the
NC
year I
State.
won it, that was the first time a lacrosse
A
player had
lacrosse
ever
guy had
won
ever
an
won it,
award.
right?
And that was pretty cool. And I remember Dom calling me and telling me, and he was like, Chris, this is the first time a lacrosse player has ever won this award. This is a really big deal.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
amazing. That's
Wow.
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has anybody
It was a
won it?
cool thing for the sport, and,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
a couple others have won it since.
Okay.
Let's see, Crotty won it, and who else did? There's at least one other. I'm forgetting, but I know Ned Crotty did too.
Yeah, yeah. But that's amazing. So, super congrats on that. And
Thank
again,
you.
honored to have you with us. All right, let's go into the coaching a little bit. So, you've done a lot of youth lacrosse. Jimmy and I were talking about that earlier. ADVNC, part of you're a big part of that, and I think the West Coast Stars as well. So, tell us a little bit about your youth experiences.
Yeah, I've been coaching lacrosse for about 30 years. I really started coaching in high school in Rhode Island, and in college time, in the summers in between college, I would work several lacrosse camps. I grew up going to them, and when I grew up going to those camps, I was coached by college guys like Dave Evans and Terry Reardon and Roy Colsey, and I really, for me, that was such a great experience. I learned so much. They were like real role models to me, and so I really liked doing that when I was in college. I got to keep a stick in my hand and play lacrosse a little bit, but I always loved coaching, and you know I ended up coming to California in 2004, and part of it is connected to coaching, but I was working for Cascade Sports. I was there at the time, their New England sales rep, and lacrosse was growing in the West, and some of the other manufacturers like Warrior and Brine had just hired some people to be West Coast reps and moved to San Diego. Um, and I wanted to move to San Diego too. And so I talked to my boss, a guy named Tim Ellsworth, and I asked him if I could be their Western rep. And Cascade at the time had 98% market share in lacrosse helmets. They basically sold every lacrosse helmet. So Tim said, honestly to me, he said, I'm not sure you living in California is going to sell more helmets because we already sell every lacrosse helmet.
Nice.
But
Nice.
he said, but if you can create more lacrosse players, then we will sell more helmets. So I'll let you move to California and be our Western rep under one condition. I want half of your time to be growing the game of lacrosse in the West. And so that was how I kind of got
Great.
started in this life of coaching lacrosse in the West. And I would travel around the West to all of Cascade's accounts, which were lacrosse stores in the major cities around the West Coast. And I would meet with the store, and I would do some promotional stuff. And I'd go out and I'd meet with coaches and really the early pioneers, guys that were out there doing lacrosse for the first time and putting on creating rec teams and rec
Yeah.
lacrosse and doing camps. And I would go out and I would coach kids, and I would do these like shooting clinics and appearances and try to help create more lacrosse players. And
Right.
that was kind of how I got started in this whole thing. And I moved up to San Francisco in '06 when I was playing for the Dragons. And um, as we started doing lacrosse camps out in California in 2008. And then that turned into advanced lacrosse, which I'm still doing today. And now we're, in 13 cities and doing camps and travel teams and tournaments and all sorts of stuff. But it all kind of started way back when I just fell in love with coaching lacrosse.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
No, it
Sounds
does
really
sound fun, Jimmy.
Yeah.
What are we
Did you
doing
ever-
here with a
did-
podcast?
I know. Did you ever did you rep Southswell and El Segundo?
That I absolutely did, and that's how I met Steve Cepeda and Alex Cade. They owned South Swell, and
Oh,
they were
okay.
one of Cascade's biggest accounts, and certainly the biggest account in San Diego. And so I would go buy them lunch, and we'd talk lacrosse and hang out. And I became very close friends
Small
with
world.
Steve and Alex, and I'm happy to say I'm still close friends with them today.
Yeah.
And got to sort of see adrenaline in its infancy. At that time, a big, one they were sort of their the lacrosse stores were just as big a focus as
Yeah.
anything else, and
Yeah.
then they've sort of
Yeah.
shifted focus over time smartly.
For,
But it was fun being in San Diego in those days. That was 2004 to 2006. There were lots of great lacrosse people in San Diego. A bunch of my friends from Virginia moved out. Tillman Johnson, Connor Gill, Trey Whitty, Morgan Thallenberg, um, Brendan Gill, Ned Bowen, and boy, it was a lot of fun. And there was just lots of good energy, and lacrosse was just this fun growing thing, and we're all sort of participating in it. And that's when I met Jono and all those guys, and
Very cool.
everybody was just sort of getting started. And
Yeah.
most of us are still in it today.
just
which
a
is
tidbit for all the
cool.
listeners. Southswell, well, at least in Los Angeles, because I was living in there at the time, there was a place in El Segundo. There was a surf shop, a lacrosse shop. There were little tiny postage stamp shops, like tiny, like 10 by 10 or 10 by 25, and then a Mexican joint right next door. So you could hit the surf shop, get wax, go get your stick strung, and then grab a burrito and head out. It was like classic, like hometown. People would hang out there and geek out on surfboards and getting their sticks strung. Such a cool vibe. There was nowhere else to buy lacrosse gear except for maybe like 3 items at Sports Chalet. And Southswell was the only place in Los Angeles County. People would come from all over just to go to this one little tiny shop.
Yeah. And listen, to their credit, they really, Steve and Alex and Scott Hockstad and guys like that down there at the time did so much. They really were creating it. They
Yeah.
were
Exactly.
doing the first leagues and really introducing it to people. And, so they did a great job with
Very
that.
cool.
Very cool. Yeah, no, and that I think La Costa Canyon was probably starting about that time too. I think as a high school team or a recognized high school team, and I think was Dallas Hartley there at the time. I guess.
Dallas was there at the time, and I met Dallas around that time, was friendly with him, still am. And he was coaching LCC for several years and then went up to Chapman.
Chapman,
And now I guess he's back at LCC.
He's back at LCC. He's head coach this year. He was assistant last year, now head coach this year. But what a run he had at Chapman as well with a national championship. So, and he's been on the show as well. So we're just getting all these great guys,
Yeah.
Jimmy, man. Okay, so then let's move on to Sacred Heart, where you are today. You went there. When did you go there? 2014? Did I read that?
That's right.
First
Yeah,
year?
so this is year number 10.
Okay.
season number-
And how's that all gone? And how's that been? You've had some great teams over the years.
It's been a great 10 years. It's been a great run. And I feel like we're just sort of getting started. But, 10 years ago when we started, they'd it's such a different program today than it was then. But over the years, every team has been different. They've all been great. It's always been Sacred Heart is always a group of really, smart, competitive, athletic, happy kids. And it's very fun being a part of. I think every year we've gotten better. We've had some really great players over the year, but I think collectively each team has sort of gotten better year over year. There've been, I could talk each season and give you a rundown of each season, but as we've had success over a longer period of time, with success comes more, just sort of wanting to keep going and keep
Expectation,
continuing to get,
probably, right?
more
Yeah.
expectations and all, it's, 10 years ago, we were not even playing St. Ignatius. We wouldn't even consider that. We were not there at that time. And now we're in the same league, kind of competing with them for a championship just about every year. And we're flying to Philadelphia this year to play Haverford, the number 8
Nice.
ranked in the
Wow.
country. We were not doing those things
Wow.
when I got there. So it's been fun to be a part of that growth. And, This year we got a great team. It's a great group of seniors, and um, I think on all the teams I've ever been a part of, your seniors really are a big part of your identity, and you tend to go as far as your seniors will take you, and comes back to maybe some of that stuff I was talking about earlier about my team at Virginia and our that group of seniors and how motivated and driven we were. And I feel like we've got a group like that this year, and we also have some very, very good young kids on the team, um, and a little bit of depth this year, which is nice. We're a small school. We're different than SI and Torrey Pines.
Sure.
We're very small, 150 kids in a class, boys and girls, 21 sports at the high school.
Wow.
So it's a
Really?
small private school. So there's only so many kids that can get in. Um, but we get some of the best and brightest, and it's a lot of fun to be a part of. So we're just getting started this year. We've been practicing for a month. We've played 2 scrimmages. And we have our first game on Saturday. We play Tam High on Saturday, and then our first league game on Wednesday, which happens to be St. Ignatius. And so that's a big game for us up here in
Great
Northern
start. Great opening
California.
day, huh?
And it should be a lot of fun.
So
What's Tam High? Where are they?
Uh, Tamalpais High School, they are
Tamalpais.
in Southern Marin, so just north of Golden Gate Bridge.
How many teams in your league? I'm curious because it's like kind of to
Let's
us
see,
the
we are in the WCAL, West Catholic Athletic League. There are 8 teams in our league.
okay.
Yeah, so it's us, St. Ignatius, Bellarmine, Sarah,
Oh,
Archbishop
okay.
Mitty, St. Francis, Menlo School, Sacred Heart Cathedral. I think I'm missing one, but
Is St.
yeah.
Francis in that conference?
Yep, St. Francis
Okay.
is in there as well. Yeah.
We're just not familiar. It's something we're exploring. Thanks.
yeah, no, getting to learn more about NorCal. That's what we're trying to do with this show. So thank you. So are you playing any new teams this year that you haven't played before that you're excited to play, or any different on your
Well,
schedule?
we're playing one close to you, Torrey Pines. We actually have never played Torrey Pines. I joke with Jono that he's been dodging us every year. But the reality is that it's been hard to find a date. And so we finally did this year, and we're flying down to San Diego to play that game. That'll be fun. That's a new team. There's Haverford is a new team. We've never played them. Germantown, we're also playing Germantown Academy in Philadelphia on that trip, which is new. And then Legend from Colorado is flying out to play us, and we've never played them either. So
Hmm.
I've
I
never
think
heard of
those are all the
Legend.
Not
new
sure I've
ones.
heard of Legend either. And I'm
Yeah,
from Colorado.
is it a new school?
I think it is a new school. And Brian Langtree's kids go there, I believe. And I think they're pretty good,
Hmm.
actually. I think it's a pretty good team.
Everybody out of Colorado's good.
Yeah,
Everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot of good
I ended
lacrosse
up
there.
playing high school lacrosse at a school called Kent Denver in
Oh yeah, great school.
in Colorado. So, and it at that time, kind of like you were saying, there was about 8 teams that played, and that was it. There was a
Yeah.
whole state championship. Us and Cherry Creek were always the two big schools that played against each other. But lots changed, and a lot of kids are playing there now. So it's kind of fun to see the growth. Let me ask you this: so you've coached high school, you've coached youth. Tell me a little bit about the difference in coaching. And I know they're bigger and faster than in high school than youth, but in terms of mindset, how do you go into coaching each of those?
Yeah, great question. I I think fundamentally they are actually fairly similar. It's very much about, the fundamentals of, passing and catching the right way. But I think more so at youth, you have to make sure that it's a really positive and fun experience. I think you have to do that at high school as well. But, when you're coaching young players, they need to have some success. They need to have fun. They need to learn how to practice. They need to learn how to compete. And so you're sort of, I think it's more focused on the fundamentals as you get more into high school. It is that. It's always that, I think, at every level, but there's more tactics when you get into high school, more
Mm,
game planning, more scouting, and so more film,
yeah,
and
right.
and it's just but I think, the coaching at its core, it's still, very much about the fundamentals at all levels and at least at high school and youth. And so, 80% of the time we spend coaching is focused on the fundamentals that are the same at the youth. It's just, it's different fundamentals as you get older.
Right, right,
It's less about, how to pick up a ground ball
right.
and it's just, how to shoot on the run and things that are a little more advanced.
Yeah. It's all about, yeah, and certainly all about having fun at the end of the day, right? And just enjoying the game of lacrosse itself.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
yeah,
And because if it's not, then you're not, you won't practice as much,
right,
and
right.
finding a way to make the
Yep.
practice fun is really important. And I practiced, I think, more than anybody when I was growing up, and it's how I became good at lacrosse. And but for me, it was never work, and it was always
Yeah,
fun, and it was
exactly.
this sort of like thing I did that was, kind of a release. I don't even at the time I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I liked it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
knew
Yeah.
that I enjoyed doing it,
yeah, yeah.
and
Very cool.
so making sure that that always exists is really important and something I focus on.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right, let's move on. This is a question I've asked a lot of the coaches. It's been interesting responses, but I think I probably know your response to this, but I'm going to run it by you here. So, are you a drive or effort guy? And what I mean by that is if you have a guy that is super skillful but lazy as heck, or a guy that has absolutely no skills but incredible drive, how do you deal with that, in terms of the last guy that, might play on the field or whatnot?
Well, hopefully it's the guy that is skilled and driven. Those are the ones that do really well at
Sure.
Sacred Heart Prep. If you can be a really hard, I will tell you, if you're really driven and a hard worker, but you're not going to spend time becoming skilled, you're not going to play offense at Sacred Heart Prep, but maybe you can be a D midi or a defenseman. So, but I think the effort and the drive, some people have that. And so, but how do you, it's not just what you do like when the practice is going on or in the game. You have to take that effort and drive and apply it to your practice to become good at lacrosse because it's such a master's like game. It
Mm-hmm.
requires a lot of time throwing a ball against the wall and so but so I don't know if I'm answering your
No, no, no.
question.
That's kind of what I expected, but so often you hear of these guys that are just superstars, but they have zero drive at all, and then there's other guys who have a total amount of drive, which is innate, right? That you can't teach that
Yeah,
necessarily, but they can learn skills. You can teach the skills if they're
yeah,
driven. To your
that's
point,
true. I think not everybody can be the fastest.
right?
Not everybody is going to be able to run all day, but so everybody's different. And so maybe there's, if somebody just isn't that fast, but he's spent the time to become incredibly skilled with his stick, there's a spot for him on a lacrosse team.
Right.
Like he could be a great crease guy. And so just because you're not fast or, doesn't mean you're not driven. But if you're just straight up lazy, then that's not going to fly,
Right,
and
right,
you'll find somebody else because ultimately, like if you're lazy, you're not going to get good at lacrosse.
right.
It requires a lot of time
Yep.
and a
Yeah,
lot of work.
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Even as a great athlete, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Hardest position to coach in your mind?
Oh, phew, probably goalies or face-off guys. I mean, they're so specialized, and I always worry I'm going to say the wrong thing to the goalies, uh, because I think a lot of it is mental. So I always want to surround myself with somebody who's played the position, which I
Right.
haven't, um, because it's pretty specific. But I think I understand the fundamentals of both position, but those are pretty specific, and so those would be
Do you have
the
a hard time
hardest.
getting guys to play goalie, or there's guys that are jumping and just I'm in?
Um, no, I think you're either a goalie or you're not a goalie, and the people who play it, just sort of gravitate
Right.
to it and love it. but you can't make somebody be a goalie if they don't want to be a goalie.
Yeah.
Like, they'll turn around in the goal like I
Right,
did the
right.
one time I jumped in there. And
Nice.
so yeah, and hopefully you always have somebody on the team that wants to do it, and sometimes you don't, especially coaching younger kids. My son is 7 now, and so I'm coaching his group, and it's a whole new exposure to coaching lacrosse. Is coaching kids that young and seeing your kids go through it is a whole nother thing. But at those younger levels, it's you don't have goalies at first, and finding them is difficult, and you feel bad sometimes because
Yeah.
so I'm all for putting armor on the kids, putting on the
Yeah.
shin guards
Oh,
early.
yeah.
I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
right. Yeah.
yeah, because the balls can
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's at the youth level for sure. It's always a challenge finding that one guy, but there's always inevitably one guy that wants to try it at least,
Yeah.
which is
And
always
then
good.
And it's funny. It's just some people love it. And some of my best friends have always been goalies, which I'm not sure what that says about me. But my best friend in high school was a goalie. One of my best friends and roommates in college was a goalie. And yeah, they're unique. They're unique
Unique is a great
Yeah, they're
word.
personalities.
usually really interesting for sure.
Yeah,
My oldest son's a
absolutely.
goalie, and he's a guitar player, and he's got all kinds of unique
That's right.
talents. Yeah.
Good psychological study on
Yep.
goalies, probably. Any of your players play other sports? Do you encourage that, or do they?
Do. Yeah, absolutely. And just, my own personal experience, I played a sport every season plus a couple. I played like 4 or 5 sports consistently all the way through high school. And I very much believe that playing sports and being active every day develops athleticism, and it's being a great lacrosse player first and foremost is I think about athleticism. Is the best athlete on the field is typically the best lacrosse player. Obviously it's also a skill game, so there's that, but playing sports develops athleticism, doing things that get you running and changing direction and starting and stopping and being in great shape, not just being fast, but the ability to not get tired quickly. And I think the more sports you play, the better you are at all that, the faster, the quicker. I played in high school, I played squash in the wintertime
Nice.
specifically to get quicker for lacrosse, and I think it worked. And so I tell everybody that will listen to play sports with my own children. They play a ton of sports. I will say in California, they make it difficult for high school kids to play multiple sports because every season overlaps by at least a month.
Yeah.
And I think that's really unfortunate. And I wish that the CIF would put some actual hard dates around these
And dates,
seasons
yeah.
so that they
Mhm.
didn't overlap. Because if they didn't, then kids could play 3 sports.
Yep.
And I think that would be great for kids. But the way it is right now is they all overlap. It kind of forces you to not play 3 sports.
Mhm.
2 sports in California is sort of like 3 sports in New England, where
Right.
I came from, where you have weather that naturally defines seasons. Um, and now, club sports, and not just club lacrosse. I think actually, the other club sports, club soccer as an example, goes so year round. It's becoming harder and
Right.
harder
Mhm.
to
Right.
play multiple sports. And I think that's unfortunate. I'm trying hard to keep it going. And so I do encourage our players to do it. Having said that, it's difficult, and
Yeah.
it's not easy. And I wish it were easier.
Yeah. I
But
think
and when I'm talking, I think it's certainly easier up to a point. You can do a lot of it up till high school. Once you get in high school, it becomes much harder,
yeah.
and you see more specialization.
I think the 2 sports that are pretty complementary to be able to play is football and lacrosse, because the seasons are split by the winter. Certainly in California, I mean, I'm talking.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of football guys like to try lacrosse, and you have that 3-month period in the winter where they can, transition into the other sport. I know down here at LCC, we encourage that a lot, and that happens a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
So, I think that works out well. But you were right. I mean, the soccer season in the winter is really tough, I think.
I wish soccer were in the fall.
I know.
I mean,
Where it is most of the country.
I played soccer, so
Yeah.
I was a soccer player, and I played and I think actually soccer is one of the best games you can play to develop athleticism, and it really crosses over to lacrosse. Unfortunately, it's a winter sport in California, which makes it very hard to play for lacrosse players.
Yeah, especially if you get into the playoffs and you go deep in the playoffs. Those guys are still playing.
They're still playing
They're
soccer.
still playing, I know.
Yeah.
In the Southern Cal and Northern Cal regionals, they're still playing. So I actually announced a lacrosse game here the other night, so CIF championship game. So I know what you're saying. All right, let's move on a little bit. We've gotten to know you a little bit, Chris. Seem like a great guy. Have you ever been thrown out of a game? College, high school, coaching, whatever.
That is a great question. So I don't think I was thrown out, but in the MLL, I got in 2 fights and I threw
nice.
a couple
Nice.
punches.
We love it.
And I threw a couple punches, and
There we go.
Even better, Chris.
and I picked a fight with the wrong guys. No, there was one. It was a really, and I guess so. I got a long penalty at the very least. I don't think I was thrown out. One of the fights, a funny story. A guy who's a good friend and who's the head coach at Towson, Sean Nadalin, like. There was Mark Millen was on our team, and somebody hit Millen late or something, and then I went up. I think it was I think it was Nads, and I went up and like kind of hit him. Next thing you know, everybody was like fighting. Sean Nadalin's probably like the single toughest dude you'll ever meet, and I just happened to be right next to him.
Jeez.
And I think I might have thrown a punch, and in less than a second, he was like on top of me, like, killing me. And we laugh about that today because I consider him a good friend. But so I think I don't think I was thrown out for that, but there was a long penalty. That might have been as severe as my punishments got.
Well, if somebody can take your stick and throw it out of into the stadium, you're not going to.
It was lawless back in those days, man. Let me tell you, you had to do a lot to get thrown out of a game in Major League Lacrosse back in those days.
Hey, high ratings with fights, right?
Yeah,
it's like hockey, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. A great story. All right, kind of along those lines, what is the craziest thing a parent has ever emailed, texted you, called you with?
Oh, boy. Well, I've been working in youth sports for 20 years, so I've seen a lot. I've seen it all. I think every so often you see you see something that's not really, from this world. And it's hard for me to give a specific example, but I have received some emails that I just sort of shook my head about. And I can't think of like a specific example, but I will tell you, somebody explained to me one time, a good friend, and he said this in a positive way. And he said, all parents are crazy. And he said, it's true. Like, we're all crazy about our own kids.
Right.
And I would agree with that. And like, I watch my kids play sports and I sometimes feel crazy. And it's not that you're crazy. It's that you want to always help them, and watching them succeed and fail on a field is a wild ride. And especially when you're on the other sideline and you're helpless. And so sometimes I think parents get caught up in that sometimes, and it can be difficult, and I don't think it's easy. And, I see all sides of it.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure.
Well said.
The failure side of it is probably not the most pleasant side of it as a parent, for sure, right?
It's very tough. I've experienced it myself, and you see your kid crying or whatever. That's a terrible feeling.
Yeah. No, I know where you're coming from.
Too, but there's good in that too, right? It's character building. Like, you need to fail.
You need to fail to have success.
You're not going to win at everything, so you need to learn how to lose,
right?
And you need to learn how to react to that the right way. And so that sometimes parents, I don't think, allow that process to happen as much as they should. They want to intervene, and it's kids got to figure that out, sometimes on their own a little bit.
Right.
Agreed.
No, there's no question about that. if you don't have much success if you don't have some failure, at least you don't enjoy that success, right? So, all right, sounds good. Do you have any superstitions as a coach, player?
When I played, I shaved every game day. I don't know why, but that was one superstition. Something about like kind of going to work maybe and just, trying to mentally, sort of like get into a different set of mindset. That was one that I did. I would always sort of say a little prayer during the national anthem.
Nice.
My brother was special needs and he passed away young, and my best friend passed away young. And I would always say something to those two people, and I would actually like sort of like ceremoniously say, I'm gonna like go give it all I got for you and
Nice.
ask for a little help. And so those were two things that I did.
Nice. How about at Sacred Heart? Do you have anything before any games?
I still do the same thing.
Same thing. That's cool.
That's great.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I mean, my wife's a special needs teacher, so I fully
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. And there's nothing like having some good superstitions. We've had quite a few good ones on the show here. One coach said he hadn't changed his clothes in 17 days, as long as they were winning. So we've had a lot of different things here.
I like yours.
Yeah.
I like yours.
I like yours
I'll
a
take
lot,
yours.
Well, there's one more I do. Thinking of Sacred Heart is in the when our guys stretch, they first they do a stretch in a circle and then they do their dynamic warm up, and I go around and I give everybody a high five or a fist pump in that opening stretch. I think that's a superstition for me, but it's something that a coach did for me. A guy named Scott Hiller would do that when I played with the Boston Cannons. Scotty, who's now who's married to Kelly Amani Hiller and is also the coach at Northwestern with Kelly. Scotty coached me on the Cannons for 2 years, and Scotty was a great player himself from UMass back in the day. But he was the first coach to do that. He would go around and then the pregame stretch, he'd be like, "Here we go, like let's go Roto,"
Nice.
and he'd do it for everybody. And ever since then, that was something as a coach. I thought it was cool. I always liked it, so I do it now as a coach, and I go around and I'll give everybody a fist bump, and I'll give them say a little something and
Nice.
try to, I don't know, give them a little.
Little love.
Little love,
Little
little
love.
inspiration,
Yeah.
right? Right. Well, that's cool. You actually just answered my next question, and I think I read it somewhere. So we were wondering what your nickname might be.
It was Roto, and
Still to this day.
it is still to this day, and it started in jest. I'll tell you my mom, America Online,
Sure.
AOL,
AOL. Yeah.
the
Wow.
internet, the beginning of the
Roto
internet.
Rooter.
With that-
That's your
My
name.
mom, I think my mom created her username was Rotolax at AOL.com. And so Roto Lax, it used to be my nickname, Rotolax, and it was sort of like people like ribbing me a little bit. And then over the years, like literally everybody calls me Roto. And but I think that was kind of how it
Rotolax.
started.
It's a
It
good
sounds like a dietary supplement or something.
Yeah, it didn't. It didn't
I was thinking of
sound
Roto
good.
Rooter. Roto
Oh, yeah, there you
Rooter, that's your name. May your troubles all go down the drain.
Okay, Jimmy. Thank you.
I couldn't help myself. Come on.
All right. Well, anyways, that's a great nickname, Roto, and I'm glad you still have it today. There's nothing better than having a good nickname. They call me T-Bone for Tom
That's a good
Bowman. I don't
That's
know.
a good one.
T-Bone.
They still do today, so it's kind of good. But anyways, let's move on. Favorite food, Roto.
Oh, I mean, I'm an Italian. I love to cook. You know, I love to make a good sauce and meatballs, but I mean, I like all food. I don't I have a hard time with just one, but you know, yeah, I don't think I can. I don't.
You have a favorite restaurant, perhaps that
No, I
could lead
think
you
favorite
in one
food,
direction?
we'll just go with like Italian comfort food generally. All of it. Chicken parm,
Oh, nice.
meatballs, sauce, pasta, like just Italian comfort food will, I could eat it a lot.
There you go.
Maybe a little Haven Brothers downtown Providence.
Yeah, now you're talking. Oh boy, we used to go to Haven Brothers, or do you remember the Silver Truck?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Many
We
a
would
night.
go Silver Truck late night or Haven Brothers late
Haven
night.
Brothers. Oh,
Many a time.
Burrellville. I think there was another place up there where you get a wiener all the way. They
Yeah.
called it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you say, Tom?
No, a wiener hot dog, right? Wiener all the way,
Hey,
right?
this is come on. This is PG.
I know what he's talking
Chris
about.
knows
I know
what I'm talking
T-Bone's-
about. That's what they call
I know
it.
what T-Bone's talking about.
Yeah, I love it. No, there's nothing better, Jimmy, at late night, 2 a.m.
Hey,
They're
that's
having
your thing. That's your
a
thing.
wiener all the way with the meat and with the moist buns and okay, I know it's getting a little crazy here, but I got to tell you, Chris knows what I'm talking about. So
I do.
I'm just kidding.
all right, favorite movie. Let's move on here.
Oh wow. Godfather.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Italian food and The Godfather.
Yeah, probably
And
Godfather
a nice
Part
glass
2.
of wine. There
Part
you
two.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, how come? Just
Oh, I just loved it.
Sequel?
I loved the different storylines, kind of going back and forth. I just think it's a great movie.
yeah, no question about it, man. That'll be a classic forever for sure. Favorite celebrity you'd like to meet that you haven't, either dead or alive?
Oh boy. I don't know. Favorite celebrity. I don't really want to meet any celebrities, but favorite person.
Historian. It doesn't have to be a
It could be a
celebrity.
historical figure. I don't
Yeah.
know, whatever, whoever.
Jesus Christ.
Well, how about Thomas Jefferson? As a,
Ooh, wow,
he's a
good
great
one.
guy.
There you
I,
go.
I would love to, talk to that guy, find out where the hell how he was coming up with all that
How
stuff.
did we get this Constitution together?
Yeah. Oh, and the architecture and everything. He was a smart man.
Yeah,
That would be
that's a great
cool
one.
person to meet.
We haven't had one like that, Jimmy. That's
Well,
that's
was
a really good one.
Abraham Lincoln or somebody had?
Somebody had Lincoln.
Yeah.
That's right. And then we've had other celebrities. Who do we have? Kobe Bryant was with someone. I think
Yep.
that was. Forget who
Yeah.
that was, but anyways, Jimmy, any thoughts on your end?
When you talked about being at UVA, you said you guys worked really hard. Okay, and you mentioned Dom Starja. Was that part of his influence, or was it the team? What made that dynamic kind of surface?
Yeah.
A lot of Type A guys. I mean, what was
Well,
it?
so I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, first of all, Dom's a phenomenal coach. He's a great motivator. He understood how to coach everybody collectively, but also people individually. He knew how to push people's buttons and motivate them differently.
Mhm.
He would coach, like Jay Gelbert, for example. He would say, Jay's not going to run hard unless it's competitive. But if you're going to compete, he's going to outwork and beat everybody. So I think he just understood how to motivate people differently, get the most out of each player. Virginia's the best lacrosse players in the country. So they're intrinsically, I think, motivated and driven. And then how you get on the same page though, and what we did to all get on the same page with sort of like the same mission and get everybody working together to push each other forward, not just 45 people working hard individually, but 45 people working hard together. I think that was the trick for us, and getting everybody like aligned and focused on that mission of winning a national championship by outworking everybody every single day. My senior year, that year, 03, we would have a full practice. We'd go from practice to a lift, and I would rush through the lift program we had. I'd do everything. I'd hop on a treadmill while everybody was finishing, and I'd sprint a mile as fast as I could on the treadmill, and I'd run a mile in like 5 minutes just as everybody was finishing, just to get like extra work in. And that was like the sort of stuff we were all doing. We all came back from winter break early. We just decided practice started like January 15th. We all just said we're going to come back on January 5th and we're going to just start working. And I remember running sprints on the track with our team without the coaches there. That was something we just all decided we were just going to do.
Yeah.
And it's some of my fondest memories of that year. It was going back early and working our tails off, just setting the tone that we're going to work harder than we possibly could. And to win a national championship, I will tell you, I think that's what's required, because we still only, we won the national championship by 2 goals. Like it wasn't like we were undefeated. We still lost twice that year.
Yeah.
it is such like we had lost basically in overtime 2 other times in the Final Four. So like, what's the difference between
Yeah,
that and winning? I think it is that extra little bit that you're going to do that the other guys aren't.
Yeah.
And there's always, luck involved and other
sure,
things, but
sure.
for us, that's what we were trying to
Maybe
do.
that stamina in the fourth quarter.
That's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
I mean, we were in phenomenal shape.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. So we're kind of wrapping things up here, Coach. Anything that any other stories you want to tell us, or anything you think would be exciting about your experiences, or West Coast lacrosse and your thoughts? I mean, this is a show for people on the West Coast, hopefully nationally as well, but at least people to get to know the scene here in California a little bit better. You're the first NorCal coach we've had on the show, so just kind of give you the open mic if there's anything more you want to say.
Well, thanks for having me on, T-Bone. It's been a lot of
My
fun.
pleasure, Roto.
uh, West Coast lacrosse has come a long way. I've been out here for 20 years. The game has grown, the talent has improved, and I think the best players out here are as good as players anywhere. And so it's been fun to see that and be a part of it. High school lacrosse is great. Up here in Northern California, we've got you know, 7 or 8 really, really good teams this season in Northern California. So it's going to be fun, playing everybody. Going down to San Diego this year to play, Torrey Pines will be great. I hope we can get pretty soon here to the day of, a California championship,
Yeah.
And we're so far away from it because we still can't. I'm working and trying to get, CIF to let us get to a Northern California championship in hopes that one day that will get us to the next level. But it's a little complicated. It would be nice to, it's such a big state.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it'd be fun to have some more, a chance for us all to play together more
Yeah.
would be cool.
Agreed.
No, there's no question about it. I mean, there's nothing we like more than to play teams from NorCal or Los Angeles, and there's so much talent in the state now. I mean, even in the last 10 years, just because there's so many guys like you coming out from the East Coast that have played all your life and now are building the game in California, and it's just so great. Obviously, the weather's great, so a lot of guys like to come back out here and live here and start programs and coach in the high school levels and the youth levels, and it's just fantastic to see the growth here, and just a testament that the World Lacrosse Games were here this year. So that's a big boost for California lacrosse as well. So super excited about it, and it's been fun to be with my partner here to be able to meet guys like you and talk to guys like you who are really passionate about California lacrosse. So we really appreciate all your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's fun being on. So thanks again for
Well,
having
good.
me.
Well, maybe we'll see you again later in the season, and good luck to you this season. Wish you guys all the best, and know you guys will have a wonderful season, and look forward to your game with Torrey Pines. We'll be watching that. Might even be down to go watch that game. So good luck with that, and good luck with your season, and thanks again so much for being on the show and being a part of Lax Trax. So thanks again, Coach. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Chris.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night. All right, amazing show tonight here, Jimmy, with Coach Chris Rotelli from Sacred Heart. What a show we had, getting to know him a little bit better.
Yep.
What a guy, what a legend. I mean, how lucky are we to be on this show with a guy like that?
Yeah.
Twerton winner?
I was taking notes the whole time.
Honestly.
I was like, wait, what did you
ACC
say?
Male Athlete of the Year.
Yeah.
Again, the next guy after him was Phillip Rivers, okay?
Yes.
A quarterback. I mean, amazing that a lacrosse player is all sports in the ACC, basketball, everything, and he's the player of the year. So
Yeah.
how honored were we to have Chris Rotelli with us
I was
tonight?
pinching myself the whole time. And the main thing was like, I was like, wow, this is like a tutorial on how to be a great person, a great coach, and more importantly, how to mentor your kids. Because really, honestly, I'd love for him to coach my sons. So
Yeah.
hats off to you, Chris.
Couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal show tonight, and boy, were we honored to have Chris Rotelli on the show. So, anyways, we are just going to continue to bring you stories, continue to bring you amazing coaches and players, and just anyone who's got a phenomenal story about West Coast California lacrosse. You're going to hear it from us right here at Lax Trax. So, with all that being said, Jimmy,
Yep.
what do you say we tell them to keep it within the pipes? So long, everyone.
See you guys.